Welcome to the Coffee Kids and Crazy podcast, a show about creating heart-to-heart connection with your kids. Your podcast hosts, Brittany Serple and Seth Dahl, are here to answer your biggest parenting questions so that you can become a powerful parent. So get ready for breakthrough as I welcome your hosts, Brittany and Seth.
All right. Well, we are back with Coffee Kids and Crazy.
We are back.
This is season 3 for me.
But season 2 for me.
Which is so fun to have. Seth is my favorite. We love doing these.
Yep.
It's like a little vacation.
It is.
More so for you. I'm still in the house with the swing
so
of everything. But super fun.
But next time I'm going to bring some of my family so that it's not as much of a vacation for me. Maybe it'll be vacation for the
everyone,
children.
The children will go and
Ben
frolic and play.
can take care of the children, and we can have vacation and hang out on camera.
Yep. We were laughing just even talking about how similar our boys are. Mm-hmm. Because Lincoln always gets kind of this weird tummy ache if he doesn't eat.
Yeah.
At a certain point, I don't really know if he knows the gauge of it, but he's not usually paying attention to the point where he fans his tummy.
Yeah, he pulls his shirt up and fans his tummy to get it to calm down a little bit.
That's his theory, and then he goes and lays down. But then you were saying that
August does the same thing. He doesn't fan his tummy, but he's like, oh, I feel so sick. Mm-hmm. I feel sick. And we were like, why does this guy feel sick every day? And then we realized he's so hungry.
He's hungry, yeah.
Because he's probably burning tons of calories all day, every day. And then he gets hungry and thinks it's sick.
Yeah. Well, it was just funny this
They're
morning.
So similar.
There's a few other things, too. Their love for knives.
Yeah.
All of that. It's great.
Sports.
Yep.
Taekwondo and gymnastics.
They are. They're experts in their craft.
They would be buddies. Mm-hmm. Yep. Experts in their craft.
That's it. Well, of course, we always start these with the great meme.
Yeah, we have really good memes today for you. Oh, you get the first one. You want me to do the first one?
The first one's yours. I think the first one's yours.
No, I think all right.
Which, should we warn them what we're talking about?
Yes, we should. So we're going to talk about sex, porn, and culture. Mm-hmm. Last time we did a couple talks on sex, and it's always helpful for everyone. Lots of good feedback. Apparently, people don't talk about this enough, especially with children. So we're going to talk about it again twice. Mm-hmm. So this is sex, porn, and culture. You want me to do the top one or the bottom one?
No, I'll do the top one.
Okay, I'm doing the bottom one. So here's what the meme says. Again, if you are watching on YouTube or listening wherever you listen, you can go to our social media and find these memes. Yep. We have posted them before, but we will post them again at the time these episodes are released. So here's mine. The child says, "How are babies made?" And the parent says, "Using magic." So the child says, "Do they use a magic wand?" And the parent, "It's an oversimplification of events, but yes, a magic wand it is."
Ta-da! When I read that, I was laughing because it is an oversimplification of a magic wand. We'll go with that when you're 3 and 4, and maybe we'll graduate to more detail later on.
More details later.
But it was it's pretty funny, and his face in the meme is just perfect too. Yeah. That sounds about right. We'll go with that.
Just about right. I think you nailed it, kid.
Oh, so funny. It is we've talked about sex and porn before, and the culture piece. It's a big thing that parents are having to fight against, or understand, or protect. And it's something that's not talked about often. Yeah. I do get a lot of questions on when to talk to your kids. I know we've talked about that before.
Yeah, we did.
My kids are a little bit older than yours, so different stages. I know we've really encouraged keep having the conversation.
Yes,
it's not
over and over and over.
Not a one-time thing.
Yep. We've given books, the good pictures, bad pictures, how to talk to really small kids about the difference between what's a good picture to look at, what's a bad picture to look at, or even to take of themselves and all that. So we've gone through this quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard those episodes, you probably want to go.
Yeah, go back to those.
Yeah.
Listen to them. But we got to talking about just the situation that happened, or really, I was listening to an audiobook. I've talked about Meg Meeker before. She's on there so many times, and I reference her a lot. She's great. Strong Mothers, Strong Sons. And she gets to a place where she starts unpacking how moms play such a crucial role for their sons in the culture that they kind of invite in
Yeah.
by the clarity that a mom says of permission, value around sex, value around covenant, value around purity, and really that is a crucial conversation to have with your sons as a mother, because it's an expectation of value that you're giving them,
Yeah.
which I know my brothers.
And a perspective, a woman's perspective.
Yeah, that mother role that they
loves you
play.
and cares about you. Yeah.
It is really crucial, just like fathers have with their daughters. It's a similar thing. But so I'm listening to this book, and she's telling me that you got to have this conversation before they're 12, because after 12 it gets really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And Lincoln's 9, and I keep thinking about, we've had conversations about this. Yeah, okay, I think I could have another conversation to gain some clarity of why I want him to stay protected in his heart.
Yeah.
So I go out to the living room, and he's there alone, which is great. And he's sitting on the couch, and I just lean into him because he's playing Mario Kart something like that. And I said, hey, you know how you're always asking me if you can play that video game, and I always say no, and I don't really have an answer for you.
This
other
is
than
a certain game that everyone else gets to play.
Everybody's playing.
Yeah.
So many people are playing it. And he's always asking. And he says, yeah. I said, okay, well, this is why. This is the reason why. And I start to describe to him how some of the girls, even though they're cartoons, or even though they're, animals with breasts, they have these tight clothes on. And I said, they're trying to make these cartoons be sexy. And they're trying to tell you that that's okay for you to look at sexy girls. Mm-hmm. And imagine if you looked at sexy girls all the time in a video game, it would be easy for you to look at sexy girls somewhere else because you're so used to seeing them.
Yeah.
I said, how do you think I would feel if Daddy looked at sexy girls all the time? And he says, that would be so bad. I said, it would be so bad. It would be really painful.
Yeah, a lot of pain.
And he said, well, but it's just a video game. I said, it's just a video game, but it has so much influence to what you permit into your life. And there's lots of people out there that even though it's just a video game, that's a road that leads them to looking at sexy girls when they're married.
Yeah.
I said, because, buddy, what you let in your head affects your heart, which then affects your parts. Mm-hmm. And so we start talking through watching things and how it makes your heart feel, and really the activation of his penis, being excited, and then him pursuing, what do I do with this excitement?
Yeah.
He's 9, guys. We're having this conversation,
It's
him
good.
and I alone.
It's so good.
And I said, so I want to help you protect your head, your heart, and your parts so that when you get married, you've done a really good job and you have something beautiful to give your wife. I said, is that okay? Can we do this together? And so we talked about it's something him and I are going to do together and all this stuff. And he said, yeah. I'm like, okay, all right, buddy. And he was waiting on lunch, I think. And he jumps up and starts to run down to go get some chicken nuggets from his sister. And he stops and he turns around and he looks at me and he goes, thanks, Mom.
Wow.
Which in that moment, I'm trying not to just start crying.
Yes, lose it completely.
Because my 9-year-old son is thanking me for having a conversation about sex and
video games.
And video games that lead to porn, that all these different things. I didn't use the word porn, but we talked about girls that, are in commercials and all these different things. But
ads.
This is, all the things that pop up. But it was this beautiful conversation that I wasn't afraid to have. The Lord totally gave me the head, heart, and parts thing.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Boom.
Everyone can steal it.
Yeah.
It works for you. Please do. But paying attention to the culture is really important, especially for our young ones, as sex and porn is
and paying
massive.
attention to how culture is developed, that it's technology is attempting to develop a culture within the home that the parents may not want, But if parents don't talk about it, address it, and set boundaries around that stuff, then potentially it's like, oh, I'm just playing a video game. But what's the culture that video games creating internally
Yep.
in your son as a little boy that could later turn into something completely different?
It is, I mean, video games are an easy access point for all sorts of other yucky things.
Well, I was watching just during the time when a lot of censorship was happening, canceling stuff. They were canceling children's authors, old children's authors, and said, hey, we've canceled Dr. Seuss now. But on another video game, my 7-year-old son just lit a hooker on fire so that he wouldn't have to pay her in his video game.
Yeah.
He's playing a video game. He's in the game. He's been with a prostitute, throws her in the car, lights her on fire, blows up the car so he doesn't have to pay for the prostitute. This is in the video game. But we're going to cancel.
And red fish, bluefish is bad.
Yeah, red fish, bluefish is bad, but that's totally allowed. We're not even going to talk about the video game. I do believe video games have some sort of regulation on them of like, hey, this is probably not good for small children. Apps have it as well. However, you as a parent want to make sure you're paying attention to what those are as well. I just thought it was interesting. Like when I read that, I thought, my gosh, that's quite intense.
And that
in
was
a video game.
That was a call or a person that came to you about it?
No, it was a meme I saw.
Oh, wow.
It was just a meme. We love our memes. But it was like, so we're canceling this, but we're still allowing this?
That's crazy.
We're allowing this video game to do this.
And that's if you're not having conversations with your kids about sex, porn, and culture, the culture of sex that we are battling against constantly, then it's going to make its way into your house and start shaping the culture of their understanding, value, and participation of sex.
Yes.
Not necessarily the act of it, but forming what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Which is so wrong.
So speaking of culture and having these conversations and all of that, I watched a movie recently called Raised on Porn. And it's only a 30-minute documentary, 30 minutes, a little bit more. And it's basically saying, like, porn is the sex ed for kids right now. And it's so accessible. It's everywhere. They literally went on there. I was heartbroken. They show you. I mean, they block out everything they need to block out. But they go on Pornhub and they show that the first most accessible porn that a kid could find or a person that goes on there can find is violent. Like, I don't even remember what it's called. It's got some certain name, but you click that and it's all this violent porn, punching, choking, beating, crazy stuff. And they said, if you want to find sex that's just like soft sex, that's how they described it, you have to search for like 10 minutes and you have to like actively try to find it. But the stuff that pops up first, that's educating our children, that's creating a culture inside our kids' heads, inside their hearts, and affecting their parts, the culture that's being created is a very violent one. And so it's not just in video games. They told a story about a girl who she started dating her boyfriend, and he starts pulling out porn saying, no, I watch this all the time. It's totally fine. Let's try this. Let's do this. And he's trying to introduce to her this violent stuff that he'd seen on there. And it's like, they're trying to say, hey, video games are trying to little by little create culture inside your home through the heads, through the hearts, eventually the parts. If you don't actually have the conversations, if you don't shape the culture, something else is going to shape the culture.
Fully.
And if you don't even pay attention to what's trying to shape the culture, it's free to shape. It's free to develop. It's free to educate. It's free to teach. But I watched that and I was thinking about my daughter. I'm like, dude, my daughter's going to be dating boys. I'm praying. Like, I'm driving.
I got two girls. I feel you.
I'm like driving and praying, like, Lord, this is going to be my first question to boys that want to date my girl. Like, have you seen porn? Do you watch porn? You know? And we've talked about this before.
Quite
like,
a conversation.
I know. I'm going to lay it out there. I'm going to ask. Because it is shaping culture. it's trying to the school's trying to do it with the way they teach sex. The books are trying to do it in the library. It's there. But it's also getting into the devices. It's getting onto their phones. It's getting onto their iPads, their tablets. It's getting in there through video games. It's getting in there through ads. I know I pay attention to the ads because my kids will be playing a game or something, and all of a sudden this ad pops up, and I'm like, wow.
They're sneaky.
They're so sneaky. And it's very role-playing. So some of those are very much like, if you were this person. So they're getting you to, in your imagination, plan out what you would do in these certain situations.
And they're kind of, you can't even get to your game you were playing until you participate.
Until you answer at least like 20 seconds.
I know
like
I'm
that.
irritated at the ones that I have, but you have to participate with it.
Yes.
And then you can get out of it.
Yes.
We want to say thank you to all our listeners. There's a lot of things you could be listening to, and we're honored that you're here with us. So thank you for listening to the Coffee Kids and Crazy podcast and doing your part to create whole, healthy families around the world.
But the really big frustration for me is I don't think video games are bad.
Yeah.
I think they can be really fun.
Yeah.
I think there's great options out there, expanding their creativity, challenging even their. I mean, I like watching Minecraft and what my kids will create.
I know.
It's so much fun.
It's amazing.
Gathering animals, stuff like that, all the stuff. And I think, boys like to roughhouse and wrestle. So I think the G-rated kind of matches of fighting where you're not killing somebody, but you're
fighting.
You're fighting. Again, those things, I don't have a problem with video games, but I do feel like there needs to be more attention to just giving permission.
Yes.
Because if you just keep giving permission because everybody else, parents, let them, this is where you have to stand for something different if you want to protect culture.
Yeah.
And the topic of sex and porn and how that video game avenue, whether it's through an app or, a console, it's trying to prod them into, what about this option? And if you're not holding that gate very tightly, it's going to just sweep into this ad. Oh, I'll download this one. I'll try that. Or they start searching because there's a numbing that starts to happen.
Yeah.
Because they see a sexy cartoon girl, then they see a sexy model in the mall, and so every stage of exposure, it desensitizes them.
Yeah.
And it's this process. It feels like it really does start in these lighthearted, silly video games with pinatas or something, and you're just all of a sudden, wait a second, how do we get over here?
Well, the thing too with some of those is like where they put the button. So like they show the ad, and then it's like it's actually built into it to get you to click download the game. So kids may they hit it to try to leave it, and they actually go into it and download it, and now they have this thing there that they've almost fashioned the steps. They fashioned steps on purpose to get you down a certain path without you even realizing what's happening.
Yeah.
And for video games too, like kind of the approach I've taken is, when my kids say something like, everyone's playing this. Yeah. Everyone's watching this. Everyone's doing this. And I know we've talked about this before when it comes to movies. We've talked about this and all kinds of stuff. And we're not anti-movie. We're not anti-video game. We're not anti any of that. But when my kids come to me and say, everyone is playing this game, I say, it's not our job to do what everyone else is doing. It's our job to do what we see God doing with us. It's our job to when we see what other people are doing, that doesn't mean we do it. That means we talk to each other and we talk to God about it. And we ask God if this is best for our family, if this is what we're going to do. And so just because everyone's doing it doesn't mean we automatically do it. It means now we're going to talk. Now we're going to seek a little bit.
Yeah. I know Ben, in some video games where that happens, I will push on Ben because I'm not a video gamer. He's not really either, but more than I am.
Yeah.
And it's been, you can play this with Dad.
Yeah.
that's where you have permission to play it.
Yeah.
And I'm trusting Ben's gauge of, oh wow, this is way too much. We're done. Or
Yeah.
okay, I'll participate in this, but then I get to talk through it with my son
Yeah.
or with my daughter if there needs to have a conversation around whatever happened in the video game.
Yeah.
But that's whenever there's a question and I don't really know, there's a check in my spirit. Those are the Holy Spirit checks.
Yes.
Don't
Follow those.
Don't disregard those. Those are really the Holy Spirit checks that are trying to help you be a successful parent. So I would lean into those ones.
Yep. And I know we're going to go towards technology a little bit more, but I like that whole, you're welcome to do this with dad. You're welcome to do this with, I think that's part of what technology does. And, everybody has their individual device and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very isolating. It's very much, this is what I do on my own by myself. So I'm in my room by myself with my device, playing whatever, watching whatever, doing whatever. And technology has created this place where it's almost normal that this is what I do by myself, not this is what I do with my family. This is what I do together. So that whole statement of yeah, sure, you know what, you guys can play it together with dad. Cool. Now you have someone there seeing everything that's happening.
Yeah.
Now you have someone there who can hit pause and talk about it, which we've talked about this in movies. In another episode in the past, we talked about this with movies. I strongly believe there are so many parents who are very upset at Disney, very upset at video games, very upset at YouTube Kid, whatever it is. They're just mad about this stuff. And I would say, if we're so mad at Disney for what they're trying to put in our kids, at video games for what they're trying to put in our kids, if we're so mad about it, that's a sign we've delegated too much responsibility for them to raise our children. So if I'm playing this game with you, I'm not necessarily going to get mad. I'm going to be aware of what's happening and go, hey, you know what? Let's pause this. Or, hey, you see that? I actually don't feel comfortable with you playing this game anymore, with us playing this game. I don't want to see that. If I was dad playing a game and this is popping up, I would go ask the same question. How do you think mom would feel if she knew I was looking at this and if I kept looking at this and if I clicked that app? How do you think it would affect mom?
Yeah.
Not good. Okay, so I don't want to play this game for me, and I really don't want you to play it now. But now we've used technology to actually do it as a community, as a family, together. We're present in it. We're not delegating responsibility of our children's culture and sex and sex ed to a device, to an ad, to a video game. We're not delegating it. We're there, so we're able to see everything that's happening, and we can go, actually, wait, that's different than the culture we're creating.
Yeah.
That's different than what we want. That would hurt mommy. If I did that, that would hurt mommy. Do you think I should look at this?
Yeah.
If I shouldn't look at this because it would hurt mommy, do you think you should look at this? But what's that? That's all in, you're welcome to play that with dad.
Yeah.
You're welcome to play that with one of us present so that we can still be in charge of creating the culture, not giving that thing full permission to develop whatever culture it wants.
And I love the piece of it's not hidden. Sex feels like a hidden topic. It's something that we don't talk about at the dinner table. It's something we don't talk about when something happens in a movie or a TV show. So many TV shows out there that are just covered in some kind of sexual influence, from what they're wearing to what they're saying to something they're suggesting, how many boyfriends or girlfriends this character has. I mean, it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
So if we're able to bring it into a conversation, it gets to become our culture.
Yeah.
It gets to become something that we help define, help create actual value for it rather than just exposure to it.
Yeah.
And that changes the game for the family.
Yeah.
So any porn or any images that pop up, it's not a shame game as much as it is a truth game.
Yeah.
We are revealing the truth around what were you looking for, what was happening, what do you need? Okay, let's pray together and let's invite the Holy Spirit in to cleanse and to just reposition our hearts of who we are and what our culture is.
Yeah.
But you have to practice this
Yes.
before you're in it.
Yes.
which means you have to get over the uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
Which I think that's why Dr. Meeker talks about doing this before they're 12.
Yeah, because
It gets
otherwise they're too awkward.
they're
is what-
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And probably, I would assume by 12, they've had a lot of influence and it wasn't yours.
Yes.
So jumping in to do it beforehand is a really important part.
And I think just based on our time, it looks like we're going to have to continue this conversation
Probably.
around. We have a lot to talk about technology. We were already planning on talking about this in another episode, but I feel like we're just starting to even scratch the surface right now with this. But all that to say, that whole thing of like, we've said this before, we're going to say it again. The first person to talk, that's what kids believe is true, no matter what it is. So if porn talks first or the video game talks, if the video game is the first one showing young girls how to dress, showing boys how young girls are supposed to dress, even if they're cartoons, that's what these children believe to be true. Why? Because the video game was the first one to talk. The website was the first one to talk. The school was the first one to talk. We have to hit this over and over and over because it's like, wait, when you're talking about this with your 9-year-old kid, you're creating a culture where we actually do get to talk about this. It's not hidden. It's not shameful. We're talking about the truth. We're unpacking this stuff. He's saying thank you to you.
Yeah.
But you're shaping a culture where the conversation is normal. Oh my gosh, it does feel like we've said this a bunch too. Like this is not one conversation. This is not one and done. You need to open this conversation up as soon as possible.
Yeah.
You need to bring out the magic wand. Not bring it out. Talk about the
Not that
magic.
magic
Don't do
wand.
that. Talk about the magic wand. Talk about sex. Talk about this stuff. Discuss it with your kids. Create the culture where you guys can talk, where your kids can ask you questions, where you can ask them questions, where this is normal. That's the only way we're gonna shape the culture that we want.
Yeah.
You have a culture that's safe.
And I think that's the biggest thing that if we could take away something from this is whether your kids are older than 12. I know I've referenced it, it gets harder. It doesn't mean it's impossible.
Exactly.
It's harder.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and her son is older than Lincoln. He's past that 12 mark. And she's done a good job of having a conversation or conversations around it. But when she heard the head, heart, parts thing, she said, "That's brilliant. I love it. I want to do that. How do I do that?" And I said, "Well, take it, run with it. I don't care how you do it your way." And so she has this conversation with her son, and she goes, "It was beautiful, but you're right. It was harder." I said, "But it wasn't impossible." She says, "No, it was just harder.
Yeah.
You could feel the resistance of it's uncomfortable for him." But you have to have enough courage to get past that discomfort and keep having the conversation so they know what your expectation is as a mom, like why this is important for you, son, to protect my heart in this, because there's a shift that can happen in them when they see the value it brings to this relationship that they have with their mom. So the big thing is you have to keep leaning in. Don't get intimidated by the topic.
Yeah.
Don't get scared by it.
No.
You can change your culture no matter what age your kid is.
Yeah.
I believe that, but you have to start. And maybe it's repenting of not having this conversation because they're older.
Maybe it's being honest and telling them, hey, I feel really scared to have this. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I feel nervous. I feel embarrassed. I feel ashamed, but I want to talk about something. And you're just honest about of the awkwardness in your own heart, of the timidity or fear in your own heart around it, to open it up.
You really do have to embrace that this topic of sex isn't untouchable, that it has to be something that we bring in to our home and our culture, just like we would, self-awareness is really big in our family, just like being kind and loving, just like your relationship with the Lord and the presence of God. All of these things are big elements of our culture, and being
So
able
is
to
this.
talk about sex, the covenant of marriage, and God's design of it, really, sexual identity, because that's a big thing that's under attack. All those things you have to talk about.
You have to. Here's something cool. It's going to start off sounding weird. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but years ago I heard that they closed down one of the biggest child pornography websites on earth.
Mm.
And the name of the website was motherless.com.
Oh,
So it's like we know the problem is there's a huge problem with
Yeah.
fatherlessness. But when I heard that one of the biggest child porn sites, it's totally closed down. It's been years it's closed down. They busted it. They stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I heard that it was motherless.com, I realized they're trying to tell us the power of a mom.
Oh, yeah.
They're trying to tell us that a mom has more authority than she thinks. Like I know some of you listeners, you have husbands and wives in the same home. Some of you don't. Some of you may be single dads. Some of you may be single moms. Whatever your scenario is, if you're a mom, like Brittany is talking about the role of moms speaking to their boys, shaping culture with their boys. We know girls have these challenges as well. This stuff is hitting girls as well. It's not just boys that it's hitting. But if you're a mom and you're out there listening to this, you need to understand the enemy said this is what happens when mothers aren't in the picture.
Yeah.
We know what happens when fathers aren't in the picture. This is also what happens when mothers aren't in the picture. But to turn that around into something amazing is to realize what happens when you do talk. What happens when Mama Bear comes out? What happens when mom is shaping the culture, having the conversation? Like, moms, you need to hear you have way more power, way more authority. This is not impossible. It may be a little bit intimidating or scary, but you have more power than you think. This is more important than you think. Please just talk. Please discuss it with your boys, your girls. Open it up. Open it up, because when mothers are present, children are safe.
Yeah.
Children are protected. Children are wise. Children are empowered when moms are talking. So if you're a single mom, take it. Go for it. If you're a single dad, you have the same role. Fathers need to talk about this as well. Like, I'm over here going, I want my wife to talk more to my sons. I want my wife to talk more to my boys. Like, I also talk to them as well. I understand. I have an important part to play. But not everyone has the dad in the picture either. Moms.
And this is why you go and you find community.
Yeah.
Every single parent that I've ever worked with I say this is where you get selfish and you fight to find a community that's going to help you in the holes until there's breakthrough, and you just keep leaning in and keep asking.
Yeah.
And God's good, and He redeems those moments. And I think the more we ask and the more we position ourselves for single parents, that God puts the people in our lives and in our kids' lives.
Yeah.
So there is hope.
There's hope.
For the sexual culture of this world.
Yeah.
Your kids could be the ones that tip the scale and redeem it.
Yep.
And that's really what we're just trying to talk about. So there is hope. But we like having these conversations. We like, pushing you back in the game because we believe in you.
Yep.
So
we do.
It's going to be great. You're going to do awesome. And you got this.
You got this. See you in a month.
Thanks for listening. Never miss an episode of the Coffee Kids and Crazy podcast by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on the Loving on Purpose YouTube channel. That's it for this episode. We'll see you next time.